In this lesson, we're going to talk about how to use switch case statements to create logic. Alright, so for this example, let's go ahead and create a new script. I'm going to right-click and create a new C# script, and let's call this example script _B. Okay. So double-click on that, and let's open that up inside of MonoDevelop. Let's go ahead and create a variable for this. So starting right up here at line 5, actually let's do line 6 after I go ahead and set up my curly brackets. Let's go to line 6 here, and let's create a public variable, and I'm going to call this int weapon. And we're going to set this equal to 0 just for right now. Alright, so the way the if statements worked in the last lesson was we created an initial if statement, and then we had a bunch of else if statements. And there are going to be times where our logic is going to rely on a bunch of those, and we don't necessarily want to create all of those else if statements, as that can take up a lot of room and can be very cluttered at times. And so a way to clean that up is to use switch case statements. So to get started with this, we're going to go into our start function, and let's start creating our switch statement. So the first thing I need to do is I need to set my weapon variable data to something. So I'm going to say weapon equals random dot range, and I'm going to set a number. So what it's going to do in the first frame is it's going to pick a number between a minimum number and a maximum number. So let's do 1, 5. Alright, let's end with a semicolon, and then after that I'm going to start my switch statement. So we're going to say switch, open parentheses, close parentheses, and then inside of that we need to determine what variable we are switching. So in this case we're switching the variable weapon. Now it's going to check this, and inside of this, whoops, let's make sure we get that parentheses back there. Inside of this, let's do our curly brackets, and inside of a switch statement you're going to have your cases. So it's going to say the first case, so if the number is 1, we want it to do this. If the case is 2, let's do this. If the case is 3, let's do this. So it's kind of like a bunch of else if statements. So let's go ahead and type it in. Let's say case 1. Okay, 1 meaning the number that is being returned, okay, for our weapon variable. So if weapon is equal to 1, we want it to do this. So the way a case is written out is case, the value or the data that it should be, colon, and then after that colon, we're going to type in what we want it to do. So in this case, I'm going to say print dot log. Or actually not print.log, I'm thinking of something different. We'll do print, open parentheses, and then what message do we want it to print out? I'm going to say you found the sword. Okay, and then we're going to end with a semicolon. Now after every case, once you are finished, so whenever it has finished out doing what you've told it to do inside of that case, you need to have what's called a break. So it needs to know when that case is finished. So after that, now what we can do is we can say, all right, case 2. So what happens now? Well, we'll say print, open close parentheses, and we'll say you found the axe. And then we'll do another break. Okay. And then the next one, we're going to say case 3, and then we'll say print, you found the dagger. And then we'll break that. And then the next one is going to be case 4. And then we'll say print. And on the print here, we're going to say you found, oops, the bow. All right, now remember whenever we were doing those else if statements, we had if, else if, else if, else if, else if, and then we had a default condition. So if none of those were met, we had an else statement. So it didn't have a condition or anything like that. So what we're going to say is else in a switch case sort of way. So the way this works is it's actually typed out as default. So what is the default response? So default, comma. Notice that there's no number, okay, coming after that. So case, meaning that if the number is 5 or anything other than 1, 2, 3, or 4, then it's going to go ahead and revert to this default value. Okay, so what do we want it to do? We'll say print, and we'll say you need, or let's say you didn't find anything. Perfect. And now after a default, you also need to do a break. Now you might be asking, all right, what does the break do exactly? You know, you've told me that we need to have it at the end, but what's the real point of that? Basically, what's happening here with the switch case statement is it's going to get that number, and then it's going to start right at the top of the switch case statement. It's going to compare. It's going to say, all right, my number is 4. It's going to look through this, and it's going to say, nope, that's not it. Break. All right, let me fall through to the next one. Is this one it? Nope. Let me break and fall through to the next one. Is this one it? Nope. Let me break through and go to the next one. Is this one it? Yep. Okay, we're done. Let's just go ahead and return that and do what it says right here. So that's a really condensed way of creating a bunch of else if statements. Very neat, very clean. So let's go ahead and hit Control S to save this, and let's go ahead and apply that to our game object in our scene. So let's go into Unity, and let's select our example script object, and let's go ahead and right click on this and remove the component, and then we'll add a new script. We're going to use example script B instead. Notice that weapon is set to 0 for right now. We'll go ahead and we'll hit play on this, and you'll notice that the weapon is set to 2. That's the integer, that random number that came out, and it's printing out our value saying you found the axe. Now we could go ahead and we can hit play again. We can stop that, and again it comes out with the axe. Let's continue to hit play until we get a different number. Hopefully we don't continue to get 2. There we go. Now we've got a weapon of 4. Okay, so now it's saying you found the bow. Now if we were to go ahead and bump up that number in our switch case or in our random, let's say instead of 1 through 5 we did 1 through 20. Let's go ahead and hit Control S to save that. And what will happen here is we'll get more of a chance of not finding anything. So now our weapon number is 8, and it's saying you didn't find anything. Okay, you could actually set that up instead of being a weapon. It could be like a dice roll. So instead of the weapon just being a random range number, you could say dice roll and then have it print out whatever that weapon is. Okay, so it kind of starting to get a little bit into some RPG kind of random type elements, which are really neat in games too, but not very fun in text-based sort of ways. All right, so now that we've talked about what a switch case statement does, let's go ahead and move into functions. We've gone ahead, we've created variables, we've talked about if statements and creating logic and all of that. Now we're starting wanting to get into how we can create specific behaviors, specific functions inside of our scripts. And so we'll talk about how to create those next.